Well, hello, good evening from
Hello,
Berlin.
everyone. How are you doing?
Yes, how is everybody doing here, Richard?
Mm,
Maybe it's good to
hello.
start. I mean, you know our faces hopefully by now through the channel. This is my colleague Richard here in Austria, and I'm Alexandra in Berlin. How is everybody doing here? So, yeah, we're here today to talk about what happens when you have doubt on your spiritual path. It's a big subject and it's an unavoidable, I think it's unavoidable that you end up sometime in doubt of your faith, I would call it, and of your connection to whatever you want to call it, God or, greater consciousness. So yeah, let's maybe start with that. I think, what do we see as spiritual doubt? Or can we have some sort of definition what we would mean by that? Richard, do you want to talk about how it presents itself, maybe?
Um, on this subject, I have to say it presents itself different to different people. And if you're talking to a person at the beginning of their spiritual journey,
Hmm.
it might look completely different than to somebody on if there is an end in the end of the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to sometimes share a little bit of one's own process in this journey. And so started my own process formally, or however you want to call this, 25 years ago. Yeah.
Hmm.
And since this time, everything changed so much. And I think what's common for people is you start very enthusiastic with everything in your life. Everything new is great and everything new is exciting. And then comes year one, year two, year three, whatever you want to call it, or how long, yeah, it is for you or it was for you. And the process starts to change. Maybe the things you connect in your spiritual practice start to change. I mean, you have a background in a lot of yoga practice, so maybe you can say a little bit about the yoga practice too.
Yeah, I think you're totally right with what you said. The for everybody look it can look totally different. I was a totally avoider, like I didn't really like the idea of spirituality when I got to yoga because I was sick. I was so sick that somebody said, like, you got to do something for your nervous system, find something. And I happened to stumble across yoga back then in the 90s, and thank God. And I worked my way through it in a way that I was trying to ignore all the signs of spirituality in it until I was really kind of made aware of that, how much the practice really kind of stimulated a deeper connection to myself. And I think that was a little bit my path at the time, like really understanding that it lives in myself. The spirituality, that kind of divine connection comes through myself. It's not something that I learned in church, like something that felt more outside of me, that is kind of ruling over me. And by the time I've actually spent, I think, Richard, 14 years in it before I kind of came into my first really deep doubt about it, that what I'm doing and how I'm doing it is totally not getting me anywhere. So that was my first break, so to speak, into doubt of the method, into doubt of why should I do it. And it felt like I gotten on a train that I couldn't stop and step off. And I so much wanted to step out, and off the train. But yeah, and I did that in another way then. How was it for you, Richard? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that too.
Um, there were basically different waves to it. So how I started, or the first contact I had with yoga was with Kriya Yoga.
Mm.
And I practiced a lot, like roughly, I don't know, 15, when I was 15, 16 until 19, I practiced a lot. And I think every path has its advantages and disadvantages, and it helped me a lot. For me, the question comes more if you're starting to believe something on the spiritual path, because this is also what starts to happen. So a part of the I uh, says, "Okay, I went this path this far. Now I know something. Now I can explain everything."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're at this point, most likely the divine is gonna get you and say, "Hmm, let's test it. What do you really know about divinity and how things play out?" And for me, this is also, I'm going to fast forward the path now to um, when Nimkori Baba came into my life big time. Um, so it's also different if you're dealing with a guru, let's say like this, and f from this caliber, yeah,
Yeah.
it's also a completely different journey again. Because you can be sure if you're following or holding the connection, if you can say it like this long enough, for example, with Baba, then it's a lot of things will happen that you never thought of. Yeah. And
Mm.
you will come back to, I have no clue what's really going on. But this is, I think, very healthy. That's a healthy process.
Mm.
As long as you think you know something, or yeah, you know more than everybody else, it's a tricky thing, I think.
Yeah, and I think the first signs of doubt show themselves also through like you believe in one thing, but then you do another, you preach, so to speak, like for a long time, my practice of yoga was connected with getting healthy, and I was refusing to go to doctors and stuff. I mean, not to an extent where it was unhealthy. I was going to doctors, but to me, it was yoga can heal me. So, and then, and I can heal myself if I'm be connected. And then like I started to doubt that. And we see that in so many things. Meditation is great, to still my mind, but where is the stillness when you go out into the outside world, so to speak? Yeah. And what I mean that the tool eventually shows your connection and where you kind of start to have what you call it, breaks, or between your own belief system that you think you believe in and the reality that you described. I mean, you kind of went fast forward in saying, so that's how I would understand what you just presented with. You get tested. The tests are really, do you really believe in something so deeply that it will work for you? And it might not be that yoga is going to heal you, or that meditation is making you the calmest person on earth, that you never kind of yell at somebody again, or so. This is what comes with it, the glorification of the tool, that it should solve everything at least on my end, in miraculous ways, and in a way that everything is just joy and sunshine. So sorry, I'm stumbling back, but I just wanted to say, like, wanted to go back to how we can trace it in our lives, and what tests mean, so to speak, the divine testing, or how would you say?
I mean, if you look at faith, um, it's easy to have faith if everything goes your way. It's so easy. What is there to be tested? And this is also not a sign of spiritual ripeness, in my opinion, because if you just want it your way and you try to find ways, um, that this happens, yeah, the way you want it.
Mm,
This is like a little bit of a childhood state of spiritual practice, because you can start with this. That's completely fine.
mm,
But if you mature more and more, it's it becomes clear that there is something that's guiding you or that's even in control of your life that's much bigger than you and much stronger than you.
yeah.
Um, and I think we could talk about this topic a long time, but let's bring in the aspect of some people call it Guru Kripa or the grace of the Guru.
Mm,
And we are also singing the Hanuman Chalisa, and in the verse 37, it's basically Jai 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 Hanumana Kasai Kripa Karo Gurudeva Kinai. So I would translate it like this: praise Hanuman, and through this praise, invoke grace or Kripa in your life through the connection to God through the Guru. This
mm,
is, in my words, um, and it's also interesting how people see grace. I think this is also depending on where you're at in your own spiritual path, because first, grace is just everything you want. Oh, grace is coming into my life.
mm,
Or you get your boons, as they say. Yeah.
yeah.
But maybe it's deeper than that. In way down the road, you realize maybe just that you breathe is grace.
Mm,
That you remember Baba is grace. And things like this. That in this moment there's so much grace flowing or coming through if you aware of it and if you
mm,
become present again and
mm.
remember.
So what you're talking about is, beyond the ego, so to speak, or just to name it, like when you get confronted with your desires not being matched by the divine. That's usually the point where the doubt starts, and then to rebuild it, to rebuild that connection is when you accept that there is something like grace and like boons, which some people would call a miracle, some people would call it like little gifts from God. Oh yeah, something open so I can do it. So that's what we're talking about here, just to clarify the terminology, because Kripa can be translated as grace, and boons can be maybe translated more or less as gifts from God. Yeah. So, and that is what we're like. I mean, we're now, Richard and I, we're working beyond where we came from the yoga in a completely different field, both, and the music and the mantras, they kind of are a part of our solid tool system. And the verses that we sing, even though they are in a foreign language and are not so easy for us to, immediately translate or memorize, they are kind of pointing at all the hints where you kind of can rebuild the trust in your own connection. So. mm.
Yeah, and maybe you see, Alexandra, if there is somebody commenting or asking a question. Do you see this somewhere?
Um, yeah, there's no comments yet. No.
Okay.
Hmm?
Um,
But you can do so. That's what we're trying to say
yeah,
in
if
this
you want to
live, live,
comment.
live.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
thing is also if you're living an or if you're walking on a authentic spiritual path, it will show you that it's for most people really not what they thought it will be. I think I've hardly seen anyone or talk to anyone who thought, oh, it's gonna be like this, and it was like this.
Mm.
So, and sometimes it's also that your life goes into a completely different direction, because you can call it divine interference. You think you're gonna do one thing for the rest of your life, and boom, things change.
Mm.
And it's also a question of grace, I think. Yeah, if this happens. Because in the bigger picture, the divine always knows better than we know where our life has to go, basically. It's not so much about, I want to go this direction or I want to go in that direction. It's more about surrendering to the process, and also trusting the process, and also trusting your spiritual process. Because to me, it's not different to day-to-day life. Spiritual process is day-to-day life. Yeah, day-to-day living. That's your spiritual process. How you live every single day of your life. And
Yeah.
I think it's not healthy to separate this from, okay, now I'm a spiritual person for 1 hour because I'm sitting quietly and I'm meditating, and then what are you doing the 23 hours? Yeah, the
Mm.
rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and just to kind of I'll bring it always back together. It's like that's where the doubt starts, where parts of us need to let go. We can't believe this is happening. This is, for example, my path of yoga stopped, the physical path of yoga stopped in a way that I would have never thought it would. For example, I started yoga because I felt like I wanted to control my body in a way that I never get as sick as my poor parents have become, like physically sick. For me, it was a total way of saying, like, this is not going to happen. I'm going to take care of it. And what happened was exactly the opposite. I was physically so impaired through the structure of my bones, like arthritis and hip fracture, that I could not do the physical thing anymore. And this was a total moment of doubt on the path. What would I do? Why is this happening to me? I was a good girl, so to speak. The whole demeanor of, I only need to sit for an hour a day. If I only had practiced more meditation, if I had only practiced more awareness, if I only had practiced more mantra, whatever you're doing, it's not about that, but eventually the path is trying just to push you more and more into a direction, as Richard just said, to bring you into the direction you need to go and look. And that might not be the direction you chosen from your mind in that sense. Mm.
yeah, I think if you look at the totality of your life and you look back, it's not always obvious in the moment.
Mm.
Maybe you see that everything needed to happen this way to get you to a certain direction, or move you to a certain direction sometimes, or to a certain point in your life. Because otherwise you might not have let go of something, or you would not have gone a certain route in your life, yeah, or
Mm.
a spiritual path. Let's say it like this.
Mm. And what I want to talk about with you, because I think that's the one thing that one cannot put together from the mind, is the idea of that sometimes when you get tested and where it does feel really out of sync with what you've done, can last for a very long time. And so you feel like you're losing more and more the connection to what you've built, and you kind of go back into becoming a little bit less aware, a little bit more, focusing on day-to-day life in the simplest form, and how do people know that they haven't lost the connection, or how do they know they're not lost in the process? Because when it gets dark for a very long time, it can feel like the process has stopped and you've cut off the connection to the past, to the divine. How do we know that?
Yeah, I think mantra chanting is a very good practice because sooner or later, I think you have to learn that you chant without expecting to feel good.
Mm,
In this society we are living in, I think the focus on feeling good is and being happy is so high that sometimes this leads people away from authenticity because nobody is happy all the time,
mm,
obviously.
mm,
And if you're not feeling connected to the divine or to your guru or whatever your practice is, the question starts there. Are you still chanting?
mm,
Are you still doing the things that keep you connected? However you're feeling in the process, or maybe you also doubt that it has any effect on your life. Yeah.
mm,
The tricky thing about all these practices is, I think for some people, they really have a hard time seeing, because it's also some kind of a projecting, that their life would have been very different without all of this.
mm, mm,
And but I also think, or that's my experience, the further you go or the longer you do this, you see more and more, yes, I can vaguely say how my life would have been or
mm,
what would have been possible. Yeah.
mm,
And so I see it more and more as grace, even though it's not a walk in the park all the time. But the grace is still very um, present. Let's call it like this.
Yeah, I think when you're in the valley of doubt, as they call it, then it's sometimes really hard to sustain your practice, and it's very because you personally don't want to do it. Like I mean, I can be like a child when I feel like I'm really sick of it all. Like I've been enough tested. Why is this not working like I wanted? That's what you said earlier. Like I can get very childish in a sense of like, I'm not going to do that practice. I might as well just kind of binge watch something. Like the things we do, go more out, seek entertainment, and be jolly and happy on a surface level, just to avoid that, maybe that one essential feeling that you were saying, that we have all become dopamine riders and joy riders these days with the input we can have through technology. And it's really sometimes helpful to be distracted from some of the pain, but you cannot avoid it all the time. It's not always pain, but like things you might need to process. And I'm very grateful that I have used a lot of tool at this point. Like I have done massaging, I have done yoga, and I'm doing the mantra chanting, and uh, sometimes I'm luckily enough to be guided to do one of the practice in the simplest form. Like I can just stand with my hands on my belly, how I started my yoga practice, and that can bring me right back into, wow, yeah, that's still there. I'm just ignoring it right now, and I'm not wanting to feel it because I'm frustrated and all that, and sometimes it can be just the sound of a certain song or so that it's being played, and then I remember and think, yeah, oh my God, it doesn't even need to be me chanting, but it can be the sound of a mantra song or anything that has a greater connection that can help me to come back. Yeah. Do you have similar experiences or?
Um, I see it like this. Of course, you cannot always face or deal with the stuff and problems on the surface. Sometimes you need to sidetrack a little, let's call it like this.
Mm,
And but to me, the important thing is that you come back to it. Sometimes you cannot deal with everything at the same time, but you can pick one thing, okay, deal with it. then
Mm.
you sidetrack a little bit, then deal with the next thing.
Yeah.
And because otherwise it feels like too much sometimes. And some processes take a long time. I mean, this can be months, years.
Mm.
Uh, and also, I see it like this in the spiritual process, whatever helps you. Yeah, get a massage, go to the psychotherapist, whatever. Don't live so much in a box of what's spiritual and what's not spiritual. Sometimes it's the question about what's helpful for
Mm.
you in the situation.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. It just to, I think that is essentially what also has come through in our conversation today, as a sense of like your practice is helpful, but your practice doesn't lead you through the whole day. Sometimes, it sets you up to remember and to find the connection. And then we kind of get drawn into circumstances. And instead of just running with it all, that you have this sort of moments where you become aware where you are in this whole scenario, how you feeling, and then what do you need or what do I need, I could say it that way. And then from the sense of really noticing yourself and acknowledging it and saying like, oh, really, I need to take days off my work, or I need to go and get advice, get coaching, get therapy, get massage, get go swimming or whatever it is, like that is already part of the trip, so to speak. Yeah. And a tool in itself.
Yeah. And it's also maybe one thing is important to mention here. There are some people, they think they have to go through it all by themselves.
Mm.
They say, no, no, the divine is inside of myself. I don't need any help. But the divine is not only inside yourself, it's also outside yourself, because there is, in essence, nothing else than the divine. So
Mm.
maybe you need somebody else to help you. Um, in other situations, you help somebody else. And
Mm.
that's all the divine play. I don't see it this way that we can do everything on our own. This is not how it works. Of course, you have to be able to be on your own and question yourself on your own.
Mm.
But sometimes, if you need a massage, oh, that's much easier if another person is doing this.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
take this example.
Mm.
And also to bring a little bit reality in here. Sometimes, yeah, maybe you need some chocolate, maybe you need some wine, some beer, some food, a nice restaurant. We are living in the West, a nice hotel, or yeah, opera, whatever. Yeah, let's be real and not make a spiritual concept out of what's okay and what's not okay. Everybody has to find out for themselves.
Mm. And then because we are in this conversation about, the divine inside of me and outside of me, because you mentioned, and some people don't have a guru, but how do they, or how do we uh, experience or recognize grace? Because that's the outside, it feels more outside, than the inside, doesn't it? It feels like it comes
Um,
from the outside more than from the inside.
I think it's much easier with a real guru because um, you're praying to some energy or form, and this invokes grace to come to you. But the question is also, um, if you're looking down the road, is the guru outside of you or is the guru inside of you? And the more you're dedicating yourself to the guru becomes a part of you. So it's the question where you're at in your process, how you perceive it. And let's say it like this, the guru is like the fire. He eats you up,
Mm.
or yeah.
Mm,
and yeah, it's this is another kind of process, but in the end, in the spiritual process, there's nothing for the I in it.
mm,
It's how you start. Yeah, the I thinks it's a better version of myself. I'm gonna be the best, the greatest, and the most powerful. And the more you walk on this path, you see, oh, it's the divine's power, it's the divine's grace, and you just are on the sidelines. Basically, you can watch the driver driving.
yeah. You are the brick in a house. You're not more than that. Yeah, you're not the house that the divine is constructing in a very big city, so to speak. Yeah.
You're
Mm,
also the house. That's the tricky part, I think. You're the house and you're the brick,
mm,
and you're the small and you're the big.
mm.
It rhymes, but it's yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, that
mm.
is very confusing, though. I think when you, okay, to me, that is confusing what you're saying. You're the house and you're the brick, because in the brick, what happens is I take myself less serious in what I need to achieve to be recognized, or to be part of this world. When you say I'm at the same time, of course, I'm part of the house. Is it like you're saying I'm the drop and I'm the ocean? Because like the drop is a part of the ocean. Is that what you're saying with the house and the brick?
But what do you mean with you're not becoming recognized?
Um, I think a part of it is a, like spirituality can be used as a cry for help. Like when, let's say, a lot of people say, "Oh my God," or they kind of say, when they, for example, if you lose a friend, or like somebody is in a really bad accident, and you notice you don't want that person to go, and you start praying, like most people notice they start praying, and so they want to be heard. That's what I mean with they want to be heard. So a lot of the conversation that one might have with the divine, and I'm not excluded, is like we are full of desires and we want something from the divine, like I want to be happy, healthy, rich, famous, we can name that all. And then and in order for because this is how our human-based world works, like the bigger I make myself, the more I get recognized, and so I think that is sort of a little bit infiltrated in our um, expectation on the path, that it has to be like the more I practice, the more the divine will recognize me. That's what I mean by that.
And how do you perceive this, or divine recognized you?
Um, I think that's what we have started out with, that we think that when our wishes are getting granted, like that's how the divine recognized me, our desires are being granted. Mm.
Yeah, and the good question now is maybe what happens if they are not granted the way you want them to be granted?
And self-doubt starts.
Yeah, where is your belief gone, and where is your connection at this point? And
Mm,
the question is also, what comes after belief?
mm,
To me, after belief comes knowing, and
mm,
this is not a mental knowing. It has nothing to do with a mental knowing. It's more like a knowingness arising, but not even to an I. It's more something that does not really need to be explained to the mind. But there's this knowingness arising
like an
of
instinct,
divinities.
even though instinct is not right, but there is sort of an inner knowledge that is not kind of computed through the brain, an
Um,
intuition.
it's it's basically not coming from the brain, but it can be interpreted by the brain. but
Mm.
it's coming from a much deeper level than this.
Mm.
And if you watch this video, you can, of course, also comment about your experiences on the spiritual path and how you went through phases of self-doubt, maybe, or disbelief, things like that.
Oh, Uli said something here. I feel more and more connected. Awareness is a key. It's very subtle change in perspective, but there it's obvious. Chanting always helps me to get deeper. So
Mm.
it's very,
Nice, yeah.
yeah.
Chanting is also because it gets you out of the mind, it gets you out of your concepts, and maybe you find also something beyond your doubt in the chanting because for a little while you forget your I, me, mine story.
Yeah.
This is also what chanting does. If you do it uh, long enough, deeply enough, and if you get, sometimes I think if you forget about the I, me, mine story, this is grace because you're free of all this stuff. Let's call it like that. Mm, yeah.
And it invokes what you said earlier, this sort of inner knowing, like inner knowing, I would call it, yeah. Because something in you, let's say you chant in Sanskrit, yeah, so which is usually used in mantra singings, and it's not an English chant, and because the English would kind of immediately lead you back to thinking and interpreting. But when you sing in a different language, and because Sanskrit has this powerful vibration of each word, something in you connects to that, and it requires of you to shut up with your reasoning and just be with something that you instinctively start listening to instead of from the mind knowing, so to or the knowing mind, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, it can happen this way. Also, for some people, I think it's more in their native language
Mm,
that this feels closer to them somehow.
mm,
And I think there are also very powerful mantras or invocations in other languages than Sanskrit. And I think in the end, it's also a question about how deeply you can surrender in the singing process, whatever you're singing or you think you're singing.
mm,
Um,
mm,
that's a big, big part of it. And let's maybe take the Hanuman Chalisa because we are in also on this YouTube channel. We talk or we have a lot of videos about the Hanuman Chalisa. The thing here is also it makes a big, big difference how invested you are when you're chanting it.
mm,
You need to do it, you need to do it with your whole being, your whole heart. Give it your best, and this will get you a completely different result. Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but sometimes hard stuff brings great devotion and surrender. Yeah.
mm.
Sometimes it's very easy and then enjoy it, but sometimes it's also a challenge. Particularly the 108 times to chant these can be quite intense. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely that that we know, Richard. We've done it often enough together. Um,
Yeah, and it's also interesting that it's always different. It's never the same. This is also what people say. They feel different every time they do this. Because some people, we are doing once a year, we are doing the Hanuman Chalisa 3 times, 108 times in Mallorca.
mm,
And a few people have been there for 1, 2, 3, 4 times, even, I think. Um, I think 4 times, or is it now the fourth time? I'm not sure. Don't remember exactly. But anyways, at least 3 times. And it was quite different for them every time.
Yeah, and the results are astonishing, I think, that it's very hard to pinpoint anything in life, to whether it happens through the practice you did or through other graceful circumstances. But to me, anything I dedicate my chalices to comes up in my day-to-day life. So I have experienced that a lot of times after singing it, things changed in the areas that needed attention. So yeah. And because every time I need something different, of course, every time the Chalisa singing is then also different for me because there's different emotions and experiences connected to that. But before we close off, maybe Richard, there's one more comment from Uli here in the chat, and he was saying, like, in my 40s, I was full of doubts of the divine, and now I don't. Yeah, in my 60s, it's still a lot of blindness, but not so many doubts. That's what he's saying here. Mm.
Ah, yeah,
Mm.
that's beautiful. It's um, it might also be a question of age, how you perceive what's important in life in general, and then divinity in itself.
Yeah. Because like in your 30s and 40s, you so much want to prove yourself to the world, and that is often attached to a lot of self-identification issues. And then when you're aging, you're accepting that your life runs in a certain way. As you always say, life is life. And so yeah, and when you can accept that helps you to have less doubt and just trust a little bit more into the inner knowledge and inner knowing, and to follow that inner voice as such. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and then if you are talking about the mantra practice here, sometimes it's also good, I think, to listen what wants to be sung.
Mm.
So it maybe you need a mantra for Annapurna for food, yeah, abundance, wealth, or Annapurna mantra, um, because you want to get something clear around food or nurturing, yeah. Maybe in another period of your life, you feel drawn to Lakshmi, yeah, or you feel drawn to Avalokiteshvara from as a Buddhist mantra.
Mm.
So these are different qualities, but this is also something, if you sing it, this invokes this quality inside of yourself. This is part of the mantra chanting practice. And since we talk about doubt on the spiritual path here today, it's, of course, there will be times where you think, oh my God, does this do anything? Or is this just something I do more or less for fun, for fun, basically, or
Mm.
why am I even doing this? And then there will be moments where you even don't know why you're doing this, but you do it anyways. And because it became a part of your life, a part of your practice, a part of your journey.
Yeah, part of your breathing process, as he says, the spirituality is more or less used in day-to-day life, and it can express itself in
Yeah, you can say used, sorry,
yeah.
or you can say it uses you.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
Mhm.
Yes, we all been used.
In the beginning, you think you use spirituality, and then the divine, yeah, comes after you and says, ah, you're a good tool for this in this world. You're a good tool for that in this world.
Yeah. And that is one of the biggest parts of where doubt comes up, because then you struggle really when you come to that point where it has no use for yourself. You're being used, and you notice you can't help it. Yeah. Anyway, and just to make a little note that people, if you want to know what mantras kind of have what kind of energy. We already did a live on this, so if you want to go back in the live podcasts here on YouTube, there is one where we talked about this at length. So yeah, you can use that.
And there's also one about the benefits of the Hanuman Chalisa,
Yeah,
chanting the Hanuman Chalisa.
that is a recording we made, and you
Ah,
want,
okay.
yeah,
But it's yeah.
yeah, but it's there in the
Mhm.
library. Yeah, and we also kind of said a lot about like what does music bring, and we talked a lot about the processes in music and developing your own music and and stage fright and all that kind of stuff if you're a musician yourself. So feel free to scroll through the library and leave us your comments. We're happy to answer anytime when you listened. And yeah, we'd like to see you again.
So, guys, I wish you all the best. We wish you all the best. And yeah, maybe see you next time. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Mm.
Ja, wir sind raus.
Soll ich mal